Okay, now I can still hear you, just so you know. Oh, looks like my audience can hear me too. Let's mute. All right, we're going to get this party started. Hope everyone's really excited. I know I'm excited. I know you're out there. I can hear myself breathing. Okay, let's get started. The moment has arrived. Feel like it's been a month. Oh yeah, it has been a month. Gee whiz. All right. Hey everyone, ladies and gentlemen, Any viewers from Milwaukee, thanks for tuning in this evening. Really appreciate it. Uh, yeah, it has been a break. I'm trying to get back in the rhythm though, and I'll get rid of my sound check since I seem to be coming through just fine. But if there is any troubles, by all means, put it in the comment section and we'll go from there. So, my name is Anthony Horvath. I'm the host of the Gutencast and also the um, owner of the GutenBookPress.com website. It's an online bookstore. If you want to support the program, buy a book, buy 10 books, buy 100 books. I can help you do all that. And I don't usually pitch the fact that we publish books nearly as often as I should, even though we have like 25 authors and we've had 5 of them on our Gutencast so far. But if you are in the market for publishing a book, feel free to check us out. The Gutencast is how do I put this? I guess you could say I was kind of bored, and I started thinking about all these people that I know that I never talked to, and that I wanted to talk to them. And I thought, how can I talk to them? I said, oh yeah, everyone can just start a podcast. So that's what I did. So today I have a guest, and we will introduce him here soon enough. Today's excuse me as I get organized just a shade bit here. There we go. Now I can see people's chats if they make them. One of the other ideas behind the podcast is that I do not like being tied to whatever's going on in the world today. Like every other podcast right now is talking about Israel and Iran. And, that's important, but you can hear that anywhere. And I think we should take the time out to talk about big ideas and that sort of thing. The further back in time, the better in some ways, because I believe that what has gone before has left its mark on the present. And if we don't understand that, we might not understand the present. And today's topic is a little bit in that vein, although we're not going to go back hundreds of years. I'm not really sure how far back we'll go, but probably 30 to 40 years, perhaps. And we're going to talk about manifestos and why authorities try to conceal them to keep people from being able to read or see them, and what they hope to obtain from that. We will talk a little bit about the some of the content of some of the manifestos themselves, but I do want to be clear that my purpose in this podcast is not to dissect individual manifestos, because any one of them would take far longer than just one podcast, but to talk about whether or not the citizens should be able to hear and read and digest those things and make their own determinations, or if they should just trust the government. And I'll just lay it on the line right from the very start that I think that a free and fair society requires everyone to have access to just about every piece of information that's available. And we've talked about this before on the podcast. We talked about the JFK files, for example. But I have my theories as to why they don't. For one thing, some of them would be put in jail probably if we really knew some of the stuff that was out there. So we can see why they would conceal it. But I really do think that the authorities believe that the American citizen is just an impressionable loser who's just too stupid to grapple with these things. And not only do I not agree with that, I think that it sets us up for more tragedy, because we fail to appreciate the scope of the real problems. So that's the premise that I'll defend in tonight's podcast. Going to introduce my guest here in a moment, but I would be remiss if I didn't say, if you like what you hear tonight, if you like what I've already said, like, subscribe, hit the notification bell. I did set up a Patreon account. I did forget to provide links for it. I'm a loser, baby. So, oh no, I don't want to complete that during this episode, I don't think. So, joining me today is Glenn Jones. He's a friend of the program. He has been on several times. Let's click the right button so that everyone can see Glenn. Glenn, how are you doing?
Good.
Awesome. Hey, let me just
Glad to be here.
let me make sure I can hear you too. Yeah.
Yeah. Am I unmuted?
Yeah. You sound good.
Are you good? Okay.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
All
So,
right. Great.
boy, we have a lot to chew on tonight, don't we?
Yeah. Yep. It's gonna be quite the event, I'd say.
Yeah. So I was wondering if you'd be comfortable because if I recall correctly, you are a Tennessee native, correct?
Yeah. Yeah.
And that school shooting at was it Coventry? Is that what the name of the school was?
Yes. It was Covenant or Coventry. Yeah. One of
Yeah.
those was the name of
Um,
the school.
yeah. I mean, that happened in your neck of the woods, and the whole
Mm-hmm.
question of whether or not people would be allowed to see what she actually said was, widely
That's
debated.
right.
So, what's
Hotly
your
debated.
thoughts? Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah. No, I remember it. I mean, when the event happened, and then when they said there was a manifesto, and then you live in Tennessee, like my uh, one of my handles in the past was or statements about where I live is the free state of Tennessee, right? Compared to other
Sure.
states in the nation. But ultimately, in this regard, there was a bit of a divergence from what my expectations might have been, right, for
Hmm.
the government, the locally or state wise, or even just the police, right? Now,
Right.
I think I remember the response of the police was a little more learned or a little more appropriate than what we've seen in other school situations, right? Where you have some, security guards and stuff, and they just hold back, and the police got there, right, and they went in and they did their thing. But they still, there you go. They still kept it and held it back for a very long time. I remember. I don't. I didn't actually look for how long it was held back before any kind of leaks happened or not. So
Hmm.
you might have more information on that than I do, but it was just a little bit of an odd situation. Now, politicians in the state, and I think even our governor, Bill Lee, were calling for information to be
Hmm.
released
Right.
at some point, but it was a little bit strange. And obviously I think I also remember when like the Biden administration or Kamala visited the state,
Yeah.
she did not make any reference to the Christians or it being a religious attack
Right. Right.
or an assault, right? Like
Yeah.
that was that's when they hate you, right? I'll leave it at that. So
Yeah. A tame way of putting it. Yeah. So it seems that so this particular individual is trans,
mhm,
and the speculation was that they were less concerned about copycat killers, which is what you hear about all the other ones, and more concerned that people would have hostile feelings about trans people. And
that's right.
that's like
That's right.
that just turns on its head the reasoning for all the other manifestos they suppress, which oh, we can't put this out there. I'm gesturing with my hands, which no one can see.
Yeah.
We can't put this out there because other people will agree and do it. No one says, "Oh, well, what if people are mad at the poor white nationalists?" Right? Um,
Yeah.
and my impression is, although I haven't tracked it, is that there have actually been several shootings by trans individuals, um,
Mhm.
and we don't hear about it for some reason. And I'm not really sure actually why it is that we heard about this one and not those. In fact, I know there have been others, but as I sit here, I can't actually recall what those are, which is a good illustration of what I mean. They just put a lid on
Mhm.
it and then no one thinks about it.
Mhm. Do you remember the what was it, the I think it was the nightclub shooting in Florida,
Yeah,
right?
yeah,
By
good example.
that was a I don't remember if he was homosexual or whatever, but um, yeah, it was one of those very clearly questionable setting, and the guy comes in and does all
Right.
kinds of stuff, and then there have just been others. I'm trying to remember some of them. I remember the one, there was the church in Texas, but I can't remember who it was that actually did the shooting. But they were able to. I believe there was maybe a member of the church who was an officer or something that was
Yeah.
able to neutralize the
Right.
situation, or the guy left the church and there was somebody who was outside in his lawn or something. I can't remember the details, but those kind of, like, churches and Christians have definitely been a target
Yeah.
of
Right.
many individuals
Right.
over the past couple decades.
Yeah. And we don't usually hear any hue and cry about the poor targets. It just gets forgotten. And I remember now that Florida nightclub one, because I'm looking it up right now.
Go ahead. Yeah.
The first reports on that was that it was like we were led to believe it was going to be some Christian who hates gays, and that was like that's what we heard all over the place. And then I don't think it ended up having anything to do with gays.
No.
The guy's a Muslim. I'm looking it up here. I think it was just a straight up normal terrorist attack, if I remember correctly.
Yeah. But like you said, it's hard to remember why, if there was any information at all given.
It's the Pulse nightclub shooting. If Wikipedia can be trusted, take it with a grain of salt. It was basically an ISIS attack, or someone who was acting in affiliation, like in deference to ISIS, not necessarily as part of the organization. But it ended up having absolutely nothing to do with gays. But that's the way the propaganda was spun.
That's right. And if you can learn anything from your memory and my memory of the event, was that was the point of the narrative.
Right.
Was, it's a gay nightclub. Right. I knew it had something to do with the LGBTQ thing.
Yeah.
In how it was presented, but that's about all you remember, because that's all they make of it.
Yeah. So it's funny. I'm looking at this again, and so he killed 50 people, right?
Mm-hmm.
And
it was a major shooting.
It's a straight up terrorist attack. I mean, it should be like up there on the list behind 9/11. But according to Wikipedia, it's one of the categories is violence against LGBT people, as if like no. And that's to their credit. At the very top, it does say Islamic terrorism in the United States.
Okay, good.
Yeah, so it does get, but it's the third item.
Somebody got a good point in on Wikipedia.
So this is actually one of the I didn't know, I didn't even think of, I'd forgotten about this Pulse shooting, but it's a really good example of one of the reasons why I believe we should have a very transparent discussion about the motives of these people, because only if we really grapple with the real motives can we take real precautions, right? So in this particular case, it's really pretty straightforward. I mean, most people would understand that if you've got an Islamic terrorist and he says this is why I'm killing people, then if other Islamic people start saying the same kinds of things, like Allah Akbar or something, for example, as they're running into a mall, you respond accordingly, and instead of falling for these propaganda narratives that really just set you up to be vulnerable, because you don't take the necessary preparations.
Yeah, um, the response narratives that I've seen over the years, and just trying to brush up on some of this uh, sordid history, there was a lot of warning from the specialists, right?
Right.
That, oh, this is, releasing this information, or giving this information to the public will allow for copycats and will encourage other people to do this or that. And that, I mean, that's the narrative. I was going to say, have you heard any other reasonings behind the censorship, right? In
So
terms of, because that's what the people, the PR people, whatever you want to
right,
call them, are saying is, well, oh, we want to discourage people from being able to replicate this behavior.
right,
You're like, well, then why does
yeah,
it keep happening?
yeah, right. So I do have I thought it would be reasonable to start with a a fair presentation of the alternate view, which is what you're talking about, like the things that people say. Here it is. Let me pull this image back up, which I had here. So, I mean, I don't agree with all of this. Are you able to read that? Maybe if I make it bigger.
Yeah, let me get it over here on the screen real quick, and yeah, I can see it. Go ahead.
Okay.
Yeah, if I'm watching it, I would be able to.
Okay.
Yeah.
So, this is like one perspective, that I think it's well meaning, at least. Um, and the idea is, of this particular organization is, hey, these people want notoriety, and we shouldn't give it to them. And if we stop giving them the notoriety, then maybe people will stop doing it. Now, it's that last part that I think is where the fatal flaw is. Um, I do agree in some respects that, maybe even in many respects, that we shouldn't, if a person wants fame, we shouldn't make them famous if they're going to kill 50 people in order to do it. Um, but I
Yeah.
don't agree with the. I would even go further. I would say it's a self delusion to think that you will end the attacks by removing the notoriety, because having read many of these manifestos um, over the years, I can tell some of them don't care about the notoriety at all, and
Hmm.
they're guided by ideological factors that they are not getting from the media. In fact, they learned it in school. All they did was take what they learned in science class and applied it to the world. And you can deny them a platform, but they're still going to kill people.
Yeah. My wife has always uh, told me how she remembers her. I think it was a science or uh, a math teacher in high school, and this was in Florida public schools back in the, let's say, back in the early '90s. Always talking about overpopulation and,
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
controlling the population and reducing the number of people, and
Right.
like that, and that wasn't even the subject matter, right? It was just
Yeah.
there.
Right.
Like I said, it may have been a math teacher, I can't remember exactly, but it was just, they would go on these discourses and promote that type of anti. I was looking up something and I came across the anti-natalist. right?
Yes,
It's
yes,
the antinatalist worldview, and that's what I mean. That's obviously what the population control
right.
advocates and things like that are promoting. I mean,
Yeah.
and then of course we call it, to make people think about it harder, as we call it the culture of death, right?
So I actually have uh is this it right here? Yeah. So this is a good example. This is the antinatalism thing. Um
Yeah.
this is the guy who blew up the IVF, or tried to blow up the IVF thing, right?
Okay. Yeah.
I love how I'm concealing my own face, but you get to be seen.
Yeah.
This
Sorry,
cannot be
hey,
allowed here.
everybody.
There I
Look
go.
at
I
me.
fixed that. So I like actually before I say this, um, I think so. You asked a very good question. Like why? Like what are the reasons for this? And I gave like a good reason. The notoriety people. Like I can resonate. I can see why they do it. I know a lot of radio commentators. I think I've heard Sean Hannity say he won't say the names of these people. You know, so I mean I recognize and sympathize with that. Um, I know
And I
there's
don't have
this.
a problem with that. Like that's
Yeah,
okay. Like not saying the name, but not allowing people to access is a different issue.
right.
The,
Yeah,
the people who want to research, people who want to understand,
right.
figure out these things. So I'm sorry to even interrupt. Go ahead.
That's fine. No,
That's the
that's good. I think that's a good distinction. I was going to say the other thing is people are worried about copycats, which is at least a sincere and reasonable thing, even if I think it's diluted. But it's hard to escape the conclusion too. This is not a positive interpretation of the behavior that they want to paint as many of these assailants as possible as Christian white nationalists. Like that's always like the instinct. Like even with the Pulse nightclub shooting, I remember people saying, "Well, yeah, you know, it's going to be another one of those Christian religious fanatics." And of course,
yeah.
it wasn't. And
Mm-hmm.
if it ever if it was widely broadcast what these people believed on an ongoing basis, the idea that Christian white nationalists, the emphasis here on Christian, are going around murdering people in mass would be like totally blown out of the water. No one would ever even like believe that anymore. And it's hard to see with the pattern of reporting on this that that's not a factor. And the IVF clinic thing is a perfect example because when I heard about this the first time on social media, I heard people say, "Well, it's the Christian anti-abortionist people, right?" And
Yeah.
then when we found out it was this guy who's a pro mortalist, who
Yes.
you know for death, suddenly we
Yeah.
didn't hear anything, right?
Just
Yeah. Um,
silence.
yeah. So I think actually this guy's website has been taken down.
Well, yeah, they were talking about how he had this website and everything. I didn't go check to see if it had been taken down, but I
Yeah,
wondered.
it's there. It is. It's. I'm pretty sure this is it. It's gone.
Yeah, it won't load, right?
Right.
Yeah.
Yeah, and the title. Could you? Um, I don't know if you can see the title of this page
Hmm.
is. I'll just say it's "fuck you pro lifers." So,
Yes.
a
Yes,
li-
that's right.
not really
That's right.
ambiguous.
No.
So yeah. Um, I wanted to. I think this is a great example of. Yeah, go ahead. Say something before I.
Oh yeah, no, that's fine. I mean that just goes to show you that uh, almost all of these shootings are not the narrative they want, and, and
Right.
when they and every time they drive the narrative, and then all of a sudden it disappears, as soon as they find out a little bit of who the person was.
Right.
I mean, this was just one example. This is just the case of self-defense. You remember the Trayvon Martin, right? Am I
Yeah.
remembering?
If
Right.
I ever
I
had a
mean,
son, yeah.
as soon as it came out, we knew the shooter was white. You remember that?
Yep.
Right. And then he turns out he was what?
He was a white
Latino, or
Hispanic. Is
he
what
was
they
Hispanic, right?
white
Yeah, he was
Hispanic
Hispanic.
is what they called him.
White Hispanic. Yeah, but they had to
Yeah.
emphasize the white. So, and
Yeah.
it was just an odd situation. I still remember all the debates and, you know, probably blockings that occurred when people tried to say, what if this is a case of self-defense?
Right.
The
Right.
propaganda was steep in that one
Yeah.
to the public, because they were putting Trayvon's like baby face out,
Right. Right.
and
And
you didn't get to see he was this, grown
right.
young black man that,
Yeah.
very well could have killed this guy
Right.
had he gotten the advantage. So
Yeah. So one of the things that I feel like needs to be said in this is that I'm a Christian, you're a Christian.
right.
As Christians, I own the Guten Book Press, but I don't. It's not exclusively Christian. And people are going to
Mhm.
think that I'm like going out of my way to defend Christianity here. I'm not actually. I'm like, if Christians were going around murdering people all over the
Sure.
place, I'd rise to condemn it, and I would hang my head in shame. But that's not what's happening. What is happening is, and this seems to be demonstrable, is that the first instinct is to blame Christians, and then when we find out that it's not a Christian, it quietly disappears from the news. And like, if I were a sensible observer to American politics, I'd want to know why that is.
Yeah.
Like,
Yeah, that's right.
yeah,
And there's another factor there, right? So to what extent does does this reveal to us the propagandizing of people through the media in a dumbing down, right? What everybody always
right,
talks about.
yeah,
Not only was you can just summarize either the lack of interest or the willingness to accept the narrative by so many people who hear about these things and aren't interested. You can attribute that to full scale, success in the secularization, effort. So you've got, right, what a lot of us think public schools have done to people, what a lot of us think um, uh, the de what's the right word, the pluralism, the pluralism
mm,
and the
right,
relativism narratives that have tried to allow for alternate lifestyles, right? And all this
yeah,
stuff, all these things that have gone into it, things that are very anti-nature, anti-natural, have successfully been distributed to the populace over these decades, which you've seen a continued collapse of cultural identity and cultural wealth
right,
because of the hatred, right? Like going back to what I said, they hate us and they want us to be something else.
yeah,
They want us to be permanently changed.
yeah. So I think that the question to be asked there is, who is they, right? I think
Yeah,
clearly
yeah,
there is a they,
yeah.
and they have singled out um, Christianity in America as an obstacle to whatever it is that they're achieving or seek to achieve. And
Hmm.
I don't think that they are actually particularly um, animated by hatred of Christianity. I think it's just a cold, hard piece of logic to them. We can't change this unless we get rid of the Christian culture.
That's right. Yeah, it is. Yeah, it's just factual reality. This culture built what was.
Yeah,
If we want this, it has to move beyond that. Or it
right.
has to evolve into something different. I mean, now I'm not trying to define who the they is necessarily,
Hmm.
but there are definitely elements that we've seen over the recent years of heightened, not just right governmentally, not just socialism, but beyond socialism, right, to more
Yeah.
to
Right.
potentially more classical Marxism, right,
Yeah.
the communism and such. And I think my recollection is that like the classical Marxists, um, do you recall, in terms of their eschatology,
The
their
classical Marxist.
their their goal, right, their end goal? There was always a statement, oh well, look, all these states that failed in their
Hmm.
system, right, they failed because it didn't come out of a democratic, republican context, right, like
Yeah. Right.
it has to
Right.
arise from that. There's that narrative that, oh well, it failed in the former monarchical or former empiric, right, states that
Right.
were
Yeah.
just used to being subjugated, right, so it
Yeah.
failed because the people, the leadership that took over was just corrupt and all this. So
Yeah.
if it's the will of the people to, you know
Right.
give
So,
themselves over to that, it will work. It will work,
yes,
Tony. It will work.
absolutely. It's inevitable. It's inevitable. Yeah. Yeah. Marx saw his doctrine as being a inevitable law of science. Actually, really, right?
Yeah.
And so everything has to go through certain stages, and it will inevitably do so. And
Hmm.
so if anything, if it doesn't seem to work at some point, it's because they didn't go through the proper stage yet. And
That's right. That's it.
yeah, and the one of the second to last stages is when the second to last stage is when you have the central planning committee, or
Hmm.
the central tyrant, if you want. And then after he achieves everything, then he will just quietly go to his room and turn over everything to the workers, and everything will be fine. It's inevitable. It's like
Yeah.
it's like dropping an apple from a tree. It's like Newton's law. It's not ideological, it's scientific. Yeah.
That's right. That's right.
So I'm looking at um this pronatalist thing, and this was only like
Hmm.
no, excuse me, antinatalist.
Antinatalist, right? Yeah.
Yeah.
I'm the
Well,
pronatalist.
yeah, right. This is like only like 6 weeks ago, and he talks about well, first of all, I love this. He says, I don't know, can you see where I'm highlighting here? I think we need to get a war against pro-lifers. So
Yes.
yeah, I think that's pretty much unambiguously not a pro-life person. In case
Hmm.
anyone's wondering. But down here below, what group of philosophers? Um, Negative utilitarianism. Now, I have to admit, I don't know what alphilism is. I think I should, because I've read it in a lot of these manifestos, actually.
Elphilism. Really? Okay. That's new to me. I'm sorry.
Yeah.
I
But
don't know that.
what I wanted to kind of draw attention to, but maybe it wasn't in this one. Um, he talks about, well, basically, life is meaningless, and it's was it this guy? Maybe it's right here. Um, we can begin the process. This is right here of sterilizing this planet of the disease of life. Life can only continue as long as people hold the delusional belief that it is not a some game causing senseless torture and messes it up. I don't know if I'm having trouble reading or if he's just that incoherent. But
Oh no, that line, that part was somewhat incoherent. I mean, I
okay,
got the gist of it, but I agree that some of his statements were very poor.
yeah, right,
It's just one more result of this education of our society.
sure,
the guy
So
can't write either. But 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 like so the ephilism or whatever, right? Yeah, that was what I understood with the his insistence that it would be better not to exist
right.
than
Is
to
that
be
what it
born
is?
and
Is
suffer.
that what it is?
I believe that's what ephilism,
Okay.
is getting at. Yeah.
So this
So it's
is
basically minimizing suffering, um,
okay.
even at the loss of happiness, right?
Got it.
Like you just don't exist.
Right.
Just stop being, and you'll be happier, I guess.
It's ridiculous that I didn't know that was the name. So this dovetails into a point that I had prepared for this podcast. The point being that uh, um, these things are often described as fringe, but in fact, they're mainstream. Excuse me. And
Yeah.
I went through a bunch of articles in my show prep for today, and a lot of them are like, he had this fringe idea or whatever. And I'm gonna switch my view here. I don't know if people will still be able to hear you or not. Let me
Okay.
I will make sure that they can. Let's see here. We'll just put you in the corner there. Okay.
I need to get my
Yeah.
miming. Wait, I got to go
So
to this side, right?
yeah, I prepare. So I have actually been following this, and so I have a book here on my shelf. Can you read that, Glenn?
Let's see. Yep, better never to have been.
Yes, and this is a prominent mainstream philosopher, David Benatar. He Peter Singer, who's also a prominent
That's right.
ethical guy, quoted this guy extensively in some New York Times articles, basically arguing that the smallest amount of suffering is enough to make the art, like when you set on if you had a scale and you had reason for life and suffering, even the smallest amount of suffering would make it irrational to bring a person into this world, right?
Yep.
So
Yep.
that was like a New York Times thing. So these are not fringe attitudes. Peter Singer, and no one knows who David Benatar is, but a lot of people know who Peter Singer is. These are mainstream people, and so this is exactly. Let me go back to a different screen. Sorry, if I had a real producer, we'd be able to do that stuff real seamless. Jamie. Yeah,
that's right.
This is one of my concerns about the censorship of all these killers, because probably 75% of them have a viewpoint that's influenced by these things, and they learned it, if not in school, in college, or breezing the boards of Reddit or whatever, and no one says, "Hey, that's stupid," because how can you? It's mainstream, and so we have all these people who are running around believing that it is better to have never been born, and if you see any suffering in the world at all, you've really witnessed the worst possible thing. Where I saw I know this guy said they do not care about the harm they are perpetuating by being willing agents for bringing into existence a DNA molecule that would be the baby, right?
That's right. Yes, I remember reading that, going, the DNA molecule? Is this what we've gotten? Result,
right.
Like they're not even just doing fetus anymore, right? As if people are too dumb to look up the meaning of fetus, which is small child. But
so this is a very significant worldview difference that is percolating in our society, where people are like, oh, that person stubbed his toe. It would be better if he didn't even exist at all. And if you don't agree with that, you're the evil one.
That's right.
You're the one that should be killed.
That's right.
You should be shot.
That's right.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's fascinating. What was it? No, there was something else that came. Oh, that's right. Talking about the mainstreaming of things. I was going to mention briefly. If you want me to name it, I will. But I don't recommend people go watch it. There's the trilogy of films called Rampage, and they were written by someone who was effectively the manifesto of the guy was promoting. He was just parroting all of the mainstream secular ideologies that you just mentioned, right?
Yeah.
That you just went over. The population issues, the suffering, the inequality, and all that. And you're just like, so that's the end of this trilogy? Like that's the goal of this trilogy, is to turn the killer into a martyr.
Yeah.
Right. Like that he believed in all these things, and he was just making a point. Right. Like that's right. That's the conclusion you draw. And and if you're sitting here with my views, I'm just shaking my head going, well, that was just worthless. Like what's
right.
Like,
yeah.
This was all a waste of time. There was no deeper, purpose in this. It wasn't really an action film. It wasn't really a this. It was just here, let's end the trilogy just saying what everybody has already propagandized with.
Yeah. So I have let me go back to this screen here. Yeah, I know, right? So like one of the things, in fact, I'm gonna hide that for a second, I think, because
sure,
I think that it is at least worth saying at some point that the divergent viewpoint here, like, yeah, on the one hand, you've got Benatar, who's saying even the smallest bit of suffering outweighs existence itself. Like in Christianity, the mindset is completely different. Suffering is like God did not create the world with the vision that there would ever be death, right? That was not the goal. But he could have, as soon as everything went south, which happened pretty quick, he could have just wiped out everything and started over, right? But instead he saw God saw that at the end of suffering, some good that is beyond, outside of even description, would be attained. So he let us go through all this stuff. And it's funny, you have the story of Job, right, where Job suffered miserably, and then finally he's like, I want to talk to God. I've got real issues with this. Explain to me why we had suffering. And God shows up, and he says, I'm not going to tell you. I'm not going to give you an answer. I'm just going to show you my power, right? And Job was satisfied with that, which is really, I think, interesting. But then with Christianity, then, like the whole point of Christianity is not to undo and end suffering. It still regards it as, not ideal, we'll say, but Christ came and suffered alongside us, right? So that was his answer to suffering, was to suffer with us and then defeat it, right? So
that's right.
It's like an entirely different mindset. And so what the difference seems to be whether or not you believe in God or not, right? How you are going to perceive and interpret suffering.
Yeah, that's right. Yeah, I love the story of Job, and the letters by Paul in the New Testament are, the kind of the magnum opus of of within the scriptures for understanding and rationalizing and realizing God's purpose in all these things. Right? You have um, Romans 9 through 11. You have um, Colossians chapter 1, and several other passages that give us the big picture of why God did these things in terms of being willing to create. And then that's the real question, right? Because this went back. This is what I was trying to remember a moment ago when you were mentioning the am I saying it right? Ephilism. The ephilism. Now that we
I
got to
don't
get
know.
that into our minds so that we
Yeah,
remember the word now.
right.
So the ephilism, uh, when I was younger, I was helping with kind of a summer thing that the one of the churches was running for young people in the community, and so you get to do all kinds of fun stuff and give kids a enjoyable week, right? And there was one young boy. He was probably a tween, pre-teenager, and I still remember his question. He was asking some questions, and his question boiled down to like, why do I even exist? Like, he
Mm,
apparently had probably come from a rough background and stuff,
mm-hmm.
and so that still stands out to me. That yes, you're going to draw one of two conclusions, right? Do I exist for a purpose, or do I not? And I think the ephilism posits that it's just some form of you don't really exist for a purpose.
Right.
So, since you're a sentient being, since you have these feelings and these emotions that they can't really justify or explain, right? But
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
then it better that you don't even exist. Maybe
Yeah.
we should just keep the world population down and
Right.
just minimize all this suffering. And it's um, I don't know. I mean, we have to let the audience, to some extent, process that and think for themselves. I would
Yeah.
tell people, think for yourselves. Like,
Yeah.
do can you really imagine not existing? Right, you can't.
Yeah.
you you exist, and um, the purpose of your existence is far greater than any of us can really fathom. So it's, we can go into wherever you want from there, but I was just pointing out it's very sad and hopeless, which is why I think a lot of these shooters expect to just end themselves as well, right?
Yeah.
They
Right.
they do not expect to live, and that's that's the goal. So,
Yeah. So bring this back on here. The that I think really speaks to one of my reasons for why I think we should be able to access the views of these people, because if there really are people running around who have concluded that it's better to have not existed, and the
mhm.
people around them have as little value as they do, um, then that's the kind of thing that we should know about. And I should mention too that I have been collecting manifestos probably for a solid 20 years, maybe longer. I have a whole folder on them, and I've found that when you read what they actually say, the I'm not going to say that they make good arguments, but they make good points in some ways, and I'll explain what I mean by that. But the
Mhm.
idea though is like, if one of the points would be that I would consider to be good is how destructive and demoralizing modern society tends to be, on them, it seems to chew them up and spit them out and spit people out, then that's the kind of thing
Mm-hmm.
that as a society, maybe we want to wrestle with. Like maybe we want to say, maybe, for example, just as a hypothetic, none of these people ever said anything like this, so this is total hypothetical example. What if it's just bad to saddle 19-year-old young men with $50,000 or $100,000 in college debt, right?
Right.
Maybe we shouldn't do that. Maybe it
Yeah.
crushes them
Maybe that's
and break.
very unwise.
Right. You know, and so when they just when that's probably one factor out of many, if ever. As I said, having read these manifestos, I can't say that I can point to any one of them that complained about their college debt, but I'm just giving it the example, right? Um,
Yeah. Yeah.
you know, these things add up, and they're like, everything's against me, and they basically start out their adult lives behind the eight ball, right? So maybe we shouldn't do that. That's what I mean by, you know, is it's a good point. It's at least something that we should take into account.
Yeah, that's right.
So, there's so much to talk about with this subject. Um, so this, let me even back up. Um, I think maybe we'll bring up the Virginia Tech guy
Okay.
as
Yeah.
a
No, I,
as a,
I vaguely, yeah, you'll have to remind me some of those details.
yeah. This is the guy.
I
Why?
think he was was he Asian in terms of
Yeah,
his
right. So a real
background?
white nationalist.
Yeah,
Yeah,
of course. Yeah, of course.
yeah. Thoroughly Christian. Absolutely. In fact, I'm not even gonna read aloud some of the stuff he says here. But this, I think, this is actually trying to find the right tab here. Here we go. This is kind of what I mean about, like, trying to identify what people are really experiencing, because if we don't hear their pain, so to speak, and try to address it some way, then we're just asking for trouble. Now, this particular manifesto, he mailed this to various media outlets, and my guess would be that if he had not done that, chances are we would never have heard this. Like the police would have just covered it up, you know.
Mm-hmm.
Um, so like here's a guy who really hates Christians. Um, Only if you could be the victim of your reprehensible and wicked crimes, you Christian Nazis, you'd have brute restrained your animal urges to, yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Um, and then he talks about this. Don't you wish you had finished me off when you had the chance? Don't you wish you killed me? Like, I don't know. I don't know what this guy has gone through, right?
Mm-hmm.
Um, Here's another example here. Now, it is possible that he's just a straight up nut job, right?
Right. Right.
So one possibility is we shouldn't care a lick what he thinks, because he's just a crazy guy and crazy people exist. But um congratulations, you have succeeded in extinguishing my life. Vandalizing my heart wasn't enough for you. Raping my soul wasn't enough for you. Committing emotional sodomy on me wasn't enough for you.
Wow.
Uh yeah. Yeah, pretty crazy. And then I have
I see a reference to Moses.
right. Yeah, he clearly yes. Yeah. And so I'll just put this little section on the screen. I'm not going to read this part out loud, but
Yeah.
here's a guy. So like the narrative that always comes out. This is what I was talking about. Like, oh yeah, it's another Christian white nationalist. Well, this guy is not a white nationalist. He's not even white. He hates Christianity with a passion, right?
Yes.
So
Yeah.
like the narrative is completely off. Now, as I said, I collect manifestos, and I only have only one manifesto where the guy says I'm a Christian, and what I'm doing is consistent with Christianity. Almost all of them outright denounce Christianity. They denounce conservatism. They denounce Republicans. They hate Republicans. Um,
Mm-hmm.
and one of the things that's really I think almost funny is like the people who write these manifestos and do these things, like they know that they're going to be accused of being a Christian white nationalist who's a pro-Trump follower, and so they actually put in their manifesto that they hate Christianity and they hate Trump. Right? They go
Yeah.
out of their way to say, I know what you're going to say, and it's just not true. And yet, because they suppress the manifesto, the propaganda goes out, oh, here's another white Christian nationalist who loves Trump.
Right. When it turns out, like this example you've got up here is actually a guy acting on that narrative.
Yeah, right.
Does that make sense? Like
Yeah.
he was as insane as the man was, he was acting on that narrative as
Yes.
though that was why his life was bad.
Exactly right. Yeah. So if we're worried about copycat killers, maybe we should change our narrative about Christians.
That's right.
Yeah. So one of the big examples of this is the ChristChurch guy in New Zealand.
Yes, I was going to say, was that Australia or New Zealand? But yeah,
it's New Zealand, and I want to bring it up here, and this would be, if I understand it correctly, this would actually be illegal to own in New Zealand. Like I would go to jail for this.
Yeah. Well, given what I've seen with Australia, and they're so close, I wouldn't be surprised.
Yeah.
That's wild.
They actually passed a law in the wake of what happened there with the ChristChurch guy that says that it's illegal to own this stuff. They got rid of guns. Everyone knows about that.
Oh yeah, that's right. Yep. Yeah.
So,
you
but
can't have written material either.
Right. So I highlighted a couple of things here. See if I can find my highlights quick enough. And if I go to New Zealand, I'm going to go to prison. Now, what? Oh, sorry.
My condolences.
Yeah, thank you.
Don't visit New Zealand.
Right.
That's okay. With what's going on, while you're looking for your highlights, I'll mention, with what's going on in Great Britain, right? In England, like that dystopian hellscape's what I'd call it. Like,
yeah,
I often think so. If I decide to travel there with my views and my social media presence,
right?
Like what would happen to me? Like,
yep. So I'm just looking for his anti-Trump statement here. Here we go. So this is he puts in a bunch of questions and answers that he thinks people are going to ask. He does not include the question, "Where are you a liberal?" Because he knows no one's going to ask him that. So he denies conservatism. In fact, he has a whole letter that he writes at the end of this manifesto that goes hard against conservatives. He really hates them. He's a little ambiguous about whether or not he's Christian, so I'm not really sure what to do with that. And then
when I know, I'll tell you.
Right. So here we have, are you right wing? Yeah. Are you left wing? Yeah. Do you like Donald Trump? Not do you like Kamala Harris or Hillary Clinton or whatever. Like he just knows, right? He knows the narrative. This is the thing. Like the narrative is toxic.
Dear God, no.
Right. I mean, he's really not ambiguous about this at all. And so like all these people who are writing these manifestos, I shouldn't say all of them, a lot of them, especially since 2016, like they know that they're just going to be pigeonholed, and they just do whatever they can to be heard, and I don't obviously
It's
condone
wild.
what this guy was doing in the least, but
Well, it's wild that that with the current um, like political and media landscape, that this guy putting that out, it's
right,
just, it's just it's just too like stereotypical. It's like
yeah,
I need to defend my what's the right word, my
uh,
my acceptability,
right,
on all these different categories.
yeah.
Like if I don't answer these 20, how many questions were there? I don't know.
Right. Yeah, and a lot of them do this. A lot of them like have like questions and answers. Like we know you're gonna want to know, and a lot of them go out of their way to denounce Donald Trump. It's just funny.
Wow.
So this guy, I'm gonna return to some of these themes, but um, I'll skip that one for the sake of time because it's redundant up here. He maybe this is still not the quote, but we can make it work though. He he actually says, let me see if maybe I can find it real quick. No, I won't even bother.
Sure.
Somewhere in
Okay.
here, he says, I could have done this any number of ways. I could have done a truck bomb. Like I had all these options, but I specifically chose guns because I want to create a civil war in the United States. Like this is his goal, and so he wants to create this great divide. Like so, it's entirely Machiavellian in his approach, and in response to his clear provocation to like draw this out, New Zealand, the first thing they do is ban guns. Like
Yeah. Right.
yeah, right. And ironically, of course, in New Zealand it worked, right? And he's
Yeah,
probably not wrong that in America it will not work. Um,
that's right.
yeah,
Yeah, I was going to say all these people always talk about, this country, that country, and I'm like, you guys are all microscopic states compared to
yeah, right, yeah,
like compared to almost every other state in America.
yeah,
and and I do think that on those levels, those scales, like England and New Zealand and more monolithic governments, yeah, you can get away with those kind of things.
yeah,
You can ban
right,
them. You can enforce those kind of silly policies, but that's never going to fly in America because
right,
of how we're structured.
right,
A lot of stuff would, as we were talking earlier, a lot of stuff would actually have to fall and change in order for
right,
that to ever take place. But anyway, yeah, that's
yeah.
another topic.
So when this event happened, um, I forget the year exactly, 2019 maybe. Um, but it was the social media went out of its way to suppress it as quickly as possible. And this guy, if I remember correctly, actually used Facebook Live to stream his attacks.
Oh
Um,
wow.
I think that was like I don't think that it had ever been done before. I think it was the first.
That was,
Um,
yeah. I vaguely remember something about that. Maybe
yeah,
maybe I'm remembering a subsequent live stream because a lot of people, maybe not in these situations, but a lot of people have live streamed their
yeah,
events,
certainly,
right?
yeah, certainly that's the
Yeah.
fad, right?
Oh, did you see the YouTuber that had the beef with the other YouTuber and his wife, and he live streamed it just this past week or two?
No,
They were Vegas food critics,
okay,
and he was they didn't even have like 3,000 followers. Like, I mean, just paltry channels. And they got into some kind of, verbal beef about each other's stuff. But the one YouTuber went and live streamed his execution of the others and the guy's wife.
For real?
Yeah. Yeah.
Well,
I mean, obviously they deleted his account and
yeah.
got rid of it and everything.
He must have been a person of color or something, because I didn't hear about it.
I think it was two white guys.
Oh, okay.
if you want me to say that, I don't remember.
I don't
know. That was I just saw that. I think it was earlier this week.
I feel kind of seen right now because I only have 57 subscribers.
yeah.
What's a guy gotta do? Jeez.
That's right.
Apparently not that, because they'll just get you taken down. That is nuts. That is nuts.
Let me find it.
Yeah, send me the link on Facebook.
I'll send you that one.
Yeah. So while
the news video that I watched on it. Yeah, YouTube streamer kills husband and wife live on stream over their food critic beef. They're
that is bizarre.
Just crazy.
What a world.
I don't remember if backgrounds or ethnicities or anything. I didn't go look up their streams or anything. I just thought, they're food critics.
Right.
Like why? 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 How did this guy think this was going to do anything for him?
Right. Yeah.
Compared to these manifestos.
Right.
Like, now that we're getting into, food critics killing each other on YouTube, like, that's just another level of
talk about a can of worms. Yeah. So to try to complete my thought maybe on this guy here, the ChristChurch guy. So it's clear, like, there is a racial element to what he's talking about. He's very ambiguous on his views on Christianity. We know that he doesn't like Trump. We know that. But at the very end, and I don't think I highlighted it. Maybe I did. He talks about, let's see here. Degenerate societies. Here we go. That's actually halfway through. And a lot of these mass shooters who are of this stripe, actually, you can't see or it went away. There it is. They have this in common where they portray the situation like the reason why they're racist is, to be crass, the same reason why Charles Darwin was racist, right? It's not like they're going out of their way to be anti-black or anti-Arab. They genuinely believe that there are racial differences, whether it's an IQ or just they might even think that a certain race has certain proclivities to certain kinds of behaviors by virtue of their genes. And this is not a really clear example. I'm going to bring up a clear example in a moment here, but this is where I think this is an illustration for why I think it's important to actually understand this worldview, because this idea of degeneration actually goes back to a late 1800s, early 1900s attitude towards with eugenics and whatnot.
Right.
The idea that in the old days, evolution would have eliminated the weak, but in the new days, we're keeping our weak alive. Stupidly, we should not be doing this, right? This is like they actually say this, right? And unless you are like have studied this and looked into this, you don't know that when he refers to degenerate societies, he's invoking the evolutionary theory that he learned in high school, or actually this guy goes on, he says he didn't pay attention very much in school, so maybe he's not a good example. And so I thought to corroborate that point, I brought out another one of my books here, and
Yeah.
Demography and Degeneration. You're not gonna be able to read the subtitle.
Yeah,
Eugenics
that's
and
a long one.
Eugenics and the Declining Birth Rate in 20th Century Britain,
Mm.
and it was a huge catalyst for the eugenics movement. Like, this is why they acted with such urgency, is because in their view, the human race itself, I guess capital R, was degenerating, is deteriorating, is devolving, kind of thing. And so that's the language he's actually invoking in this. That's what he means to say. And so
Mhm.
where did he learn? Where did he learn this idea? Is there anything more mainstream right now than the teaching of Darwinism? I mean, you can't even question and challenge it. And yet, what's happening is that these young people, of course, in their science classrooms, no one's ever gonna in America, no science teacher is going to say, well, if you look closely, you'll see that there are populations among us that are evolutionarily inferior, right? That's
Right.
not going to happen, right? But it doesn't take a giant leap of logic for them to say, well, there's subpopulations in every species. Oh, look, there's subpopulations in our species, and some
Yep.
of them are holding us back. And so no wonder you have these people who are jumping to that conclusion, and then they're I find in their manifestos that they're disgusted by the unwillingness of their fellow citizens to recognize what seems to be plain as day to them.
Right. Right.
Yeah.
Yeah, and you have all the statistics and the people that study demographics and ethnicities and backgrounds, and you can see that there are differences. There may be proclivities and things like that. That doesn't, result in anything negative in recognizing those kind of things. It has everything to do with what your goal is, right? Like, what is the goal of your existence? What's the point of why you're here? And that was what was it that you said? Um yeah, I'm having a hard time putting it into words, but I find that it's a fascinating point that the Darwinism and evolution science aspect with the postmodern, right, relativism and stuff are basically conflicting one another. Does that make
Mm-hmm.
sense?
Yeah.
Like, they're
Yeah.
conflicting because the one would draw clear conclusions that these manifesto writers are frustrated with, right? But then this whole question of power and keeping people from power and all this stuff that's in the postmodern movement
Yeah.
is what is driving the lifting up of the so-called weaker members of
Yeah.
society, right?
Right.
Does that make
Yeah.
sense? Like,
Yeah. I think
it's
so.
just a hard conflict. You can't make those two things go together.
Yeah.
In my opinion.
So, yeah. I think I'm with you on that. So, like, no, I'll just let it rest because we're gonna run out of time.
Sure.
Not that anyone cares about time. I'm the only one that cares about the time. The At the very beginning, you said like what are the reasons and arguments for like what are the reasons they give for the censorship? And I think
Yes. Right.
one of the reasons that's not stated, and this is captured by the thumbnail that I chose for this episode, which was they think we're stupid, is
That's right.
they're so worried about the copycats, I believe, because they basically think we are just animals that can be conditioned. We're like Pavlov's dog. right?
That's
And
right.
so if we are presented with an argument from one of these manifestos, we will completely lose all of our free will, all of our ability to think, and will be triggered like the Manchurian Candidate, like, oh,
Yeah. Yeah.
yes, and like irresistibly be forced to go out and start killing people, right? So this is the behavioral theory, which is purely materialistic again, right? And so I think they actually, a lot of them think that, like, this is why they're worried about the copycats. And I believe that the best answer to a bad argument is a good argument, and that
Hmm.
if you let the bad argument, if you try to hide it and push it down, it's just going to find a new place to pop up. And
Yeah.
since you've closed off all of the places where you might hear that bad argument in order to refute it, it's going to go into regions, say on the internet, like at 8chan or whatever, and
Right. Yeah.
no
How
one's
how
ever going to
how,
know
how
about
many
it.
chains are we up to now?
Yeah, I don't even know. And so like I think that not that we want to go out go out of our way to give them a forum per se, but that we lose our opportunity to refute these ideas if we don't ever allow them to be heard in any
Yeah.
respects.
Well, right. But the fact that so many, and then if this makes sense, the fact that so many of these manifestos are actually promoting what the media narratives are driving,
Yeah,
I
right.
I think that's the complementative reason for the censorship inherently, because if you were to put these on display, people would realize they believe these things
Right.
and that these
Right.
people took them to crazy ends, and they might start rejecting them. Does that makes sense? Like
Yeah, yeah,
they
yeah.
might just start rejecting them and saying, "Oh, I don't want to kill people. I
Right.
I care about my
Yeah.
friends and my
Right.
families and the
Right. So
children."
that they might have to evaluate their own axioms, right?
Exactly.
Yeah. So here is a one of the manifestos, and you I can tell you already love it. The
Oh yeah.
Natural Selectors Manifesto. Let's see if I can get it on the screen. And still, I know everyone's just dying to see me and you.
Help. Wait, I'm going the wrong direction. Help.
No, it's not going to work. Here, let's just we'll just do it like that. No, we'll make it smaller. That's what we'll do. So there we go. Okay, so this guy, um, I mean, this is like the epitome of what I've been talking about.
I'm
Right?
sorry. Yeah, yeah.
You know, what do
That's
you
right.
read the highlighted part, right?
Yeah, yeah. I just
Yeah. And so this is see that his name's at the very bottom. This is I don't I don't remember this guy. He was a killer in Europe, as I recall.
okay.
I kind of forget what he did. Um
You know what
yes.
time frame?
Well, it's got to be within the last 20 years. Probably the
Okay,
last
so
10
this
years.
is
Yeah.
okay.
So yeah, we're degenerating. Um we should look him up before we're done. But
Sure.
this is another factor we haven't talked about very much. I know it's probably hard for you to read. You can say that I have a God complex, sure. And then you have a group complex. Compared to you retarded masses, I am actually godlike. And a lot of these people, they reject God and take the role of God themselves. Like because they have the knowledge that none of the other people have the courage to accept or act on, and they do. So a lot of them actually have this um, mindset. But where was the thing I was gonna? Here we go. Life is just a meaningless coincidence, the result of long processes of evolution and many several factors, causes and effects. However, life is also something that an individual wants and determines it to be. I am the dictator and God of my own life, and me, I have chosen my way. I am prepared to fight and die for my cause. I, as a natural selector, will eliminate all who I see unfit, disgraces of human race, and failures of natural selection. And then in that second uh, part there, the truth is, I'm just an animal. So where did he get this idea, right? This is like, I don't mean to, I mean, I really don't like, I think Darwinism is a failed theory from a scientific point of view. Um, but it's the only one. This episode is not about critiquing evolution or Darwinism. I'll use that phrase, but
Right.
it's really hard to take Darwinism and actually divorce it from its logical implications, and that's like one of the great uh, achievements, I think, in the promotion of Darwinism, since the fall of the eugenics movement, at least, is to say you can believe that we are the result of these processes, and the inferior died away, and the result is us, and then get people to never consider the possibility that there are sub races among us. Like we'll just make sure they don't think about that. And in my opinion, like it's astonishing that they succeed in that operation, but they do,
Yeah.
obviously, right? But to me, that's like that. This goes back to what one of the things that you said, like the very repelling nature of these conclusions are enough to make me wonder and at least ask the question, like if I was some other person, do
Yeah.
do I really want this Darwinism thing? Is that really, like, that seems to be incompatible with what I am as a human, and if that's the case, then I myself can't be a result of evolution, right? That would be the logical implication. Or
Mm.
this guy's
Yep.
right.
Yeah. Yeah. Exactly. Well, and you saw there where he said, "I'm the dictator and God of my own life."
Yeah.
That I don't think that's an echo necessarily of this, but it did remind me of the Invictus poem. Do you know that one by William Ernest Henley? The I think they named that one movie about the African political leader Invictus. And as soon as
Yes.
they came out with the title, I was just like, oh, I'm not going to watch that movie. But Invictus was the poem that Timothy McVeigh quoted right before his
Oh,
execution in
yes.
2001. So you remember you get your final word at your execution,
Uh-huh.
and he quoted Invictus. And do you mind if I give you that poem real quick? The
You want me to find it? Is that what you're saying?
oh, you can pull it up. I was going to read it
Oh
to
yeah, go ahead. Yeah,
the
go for it.
watchers. Go ahead.
Yep.
So William Ernest Henley wrote, "Out of the night that covers me, black is the pit from pole to pole. I thank whatever gods may be for my unconquerable soul."
Hmm.
You hear that? I'm the dictator of my life
Right.
aspect. That's why I said it's not quite a quote, because Henley said whatever gods may be, but he says, "In the fell clutch of circumstance, I have not winced nor cried aloud. Under the bludgeoning of chance, my head is bloody but unbowed. Beyond this place of wrath and tears looms but the horror of the shade, and yet the menace of the years finds and shall find me unafraid. It matters not how strait the gate, how charged with punishments the scroll. I am the master of my fate. I am the captain of my soul." So
Yeah.
those last two lines are like, you will hear them quoted in TV shows and
Right.
movies. There's I've heard them numerous times echoed, and I'm just like, that's Invictus. So
Right.
we had to read that in the senior year of English, which
Uh,
was uh, I believe I was at a private Christian school for high school, and the emphasis on senior English was kind of your life statement and purpose. So you read a lot of philosophy, in terms of your reading material for what you were writing and preparing. We had to do I think a philosophy of life paper that year. So I'll never forget this poem. It was very, I
Interesting.
think, I don't remember if we had to memorize it. I memorized it because it was very telling. And then I graduated in 2000, and then of course 2001 McVeigh's executed,
Huh.
and
Yeah.
he reads Invictus, and I'm
Huh.
like, what?
Yeah. How about that, right?
So it's definitely a very telling and powerful poem for people who believe that they're in control of what happens to them
One
and around them. Very
one of
broadly.
these manifestos, and I'm trying to find out which one. One of them actually, I think, quotes McVeigh's invocation of Invictus, but
Okay.
I couldn't
Okay. There
find
you
it.
go.
So yeah, they're like totally in tune with it. But it does
Yep.
remind me, since we're running out of time, that so these are a lot of these people went out of their way to wear shirts that as they like that gave their message, right? And so
Wow.
so Eric Harris, this is Columbine, Natural Selection, Klebold Wrath, I'm
Okay.
not really sure. Um, there's McVeigh mentioned,
Yep.
Humanity,
Six Zipper Tyrannus.
and then down here, here's your invocation of degeneracy again. So I think a lot of people aren't going to recognize the connection between that and evolution unless like you really draw it out. And of course, natural selection, makes it like so. There's a couple,
Yeah.
right? They're not being shy about it, but if you like suppress what they say and you hide it, then you never know,
Yeah.
right? I'm gonna just go through real quick a couple of things, and then we can wrap it up together. But I want to call attention to some of the stuff that I brought up. Let's see here. The Sandy Hook guy. I don't know if he had I kind of lost track of whether or not he had a manifesto or not.
Yeah.
It's really one of the problems with the way our media works is they bring up stuff and then it disappears after 5 minutes, and I think they count on that a lot. But he had a YouTube. The Adam Lanza had a YouTube video, and a lot of these manifests. I mean, I guess I should say that at least in principle, the idea of a copycat is not ridiculous because clearly some of these people are inspired by others that have gone before them. And Lanza and the ChristChurch guy are certainly quoted by other people. So, but there's an underground current that that we are not aware of that we should be made aware of. But anyway, I'm gonna just mention
Yeah.
this because you can you can see my antinatalism.
Yeah.
Right.
So the year before Sandy Hook.
Yeah. So like I don't think that I heard with Sandy Hook any conversations about any allegations that here was a Christian white nationalist. I don't recall that. But all I ever heard about Sandy Hook was guns bad.
Gun control. Yeah, that's right.
We never heard antinatalism bad. But just in today's podcast episode, we've had two that have explicitly mentioned it in their manifestos, and there are others that we haven't. Right. So here you have an ideology that's running rampant in the underground culture of our country, and no one knows about it because every time that these incidents happen, instead of focusing on the ideology, or even acknowledging the ideology that gave rise to them, they focus on the tools of destruction. And as the ChristChurch guy said, he could have used a truck bomb. He could have drove his vehicle through millions of people. He could have just taken a real sharp knife into a grade school and killed people that way, right?
Yeah.
There's no end to the different ways that they could kill people, but there's this narrative that And then I almost I'm interrupting myself as I speak. There's this
Yeah,
narrative
yeah,
when they see when the liberal media hears a mass shooting, they're almost happy, it seems, because like here's another chance to maybe get rid of guns. When in fact the only way to stop these people would have been a gun.
yeah,
You know,
yeah.
but the reason why
That's right. That was a key uh, aspect of I think the more the it was interesting to see how the response, even though they censored it, the response to the Nashville shooting
yeah,
was with the Tennesseans was more like, we need guns.
right,
Like
yeah, right,
we need hardened security, we need
right,
armed guards, and that
yeah,
versus the typical like Sandy Hook narrative and stuff.
yeah.
Like,
And in
we
these
need to ban large capacity magazines, we need to
right,
ban rifles, we need to ban ARs, blah blah
yeah.
blah, everything you normally.
In these manifestos, they give advice to each other, and one of them goes out of his way to say, make sure you go after soft targets.
Ah, yes.
And
Yep.
the as I recall, if I recall correctly, the Aurora, Colorado guy actually chose his movie theater because he saw one of the factors was there was a no guns allowed decal there.
Right.
So that's where he went.
Right. Yeah.
Only a couple of them that I recall seeing have ever said to actually go after law enforcement. Like they want the soft
Mm.
targets. Anyway, I wanted to say about this Adam Lanza thing. Like I would submit. I think that you might find it interesting from the point of view you Glenn. You
Sure.
know, he really does thoughtfully grapple with the problem or the issue of existence, like in all of its problems, right? And he concludes that the most logical thing to do is to commit suicide, right? Which is that was Camus' basic premise. Like the only important philosophical question is whether or not you should kill yourself. So that's like
Okay.
core nihilism.
Yeah.
And that's also this David Benatar guy that I talked about before. But there would have been this is a transcript of the videos from his YouTube channel, which are not the same as a manifesto. But there would have been opportunities to wrestle with what he was saying and try to persuade him to a different viewpoint if anyone had been
Mhm.
so inclined. That was one of my
Yeah.
takeaways from reading this. And then I wanted to mention people are going to think that I cherry picked my manifestos, but it's not true. um, they really are often just like this. So there was the Discovery Channel hostage scenario. Try to find it real quick.
You shared that with me, and I was like, boy, I do not remember that at all. So,
Yeah. Well, I've always one of my flaws is I want to know who's going to try to kill me next,
yes.
and to try to be ready. So this guy, I don't think he killed that many. He may not have killed anyone except for himself. Actually, I don't really remember.
Yeah, I believe the summary was that he was the only one. Like a standoff and stuff occurred. They evacuated a whole bunch of employees, but in the end, only he died.
Yeah. Okay. But his motivation here, I mean, this is just another example out of the many that we could give where these people are like, well, there's too many people. The problem are the people. It's the fixation on the guns, except for with the ChristChurch guy who deliberately used a gun. it's totally incidental. So here in this, one of his demands was all programs on Discovery Health must stop encouraging the birth of any more parasitic human infants. So, in other words, basically, Discovery would air nothing because it's like their entire programming. Um,
Right, right.
um, so this is more antinatalism, right? But
Hmm.
he invokes this Daniel Quinn guy, and to be completely fair, I've not purchased this book, Daniel Quinn, My Ishmael, so I
Hmm.
haven't reviewed it myself. But I, from the summary, my feeling is this James Lee guy was like totally bastardized. Like I don't feel like this is a case where I don't think Daniel Quinn should be torpedoed or maligned for this inspiration. But
Oh yeah, yeah.
caveat is I haven't actually read it, so I reserve the right to be
Okay.
wrong on that. Um, but to go on down here, he wants them. He insists that Discovery develop shows that mention the Malthusian sciences about food production, leading to overpopulation of the human race. Talk about evolution, talk about Malthus and Darwin until it sinks into the stupid people's brains until they get it. um, Here at the very bottom, you must know the human population is behind all the pollution and problems in the world. Surely you must already know this.
Hmm.
So, like, to me, I feel like the manifestos are all this like untapped territory of robust conversations that we should be having. The Adam Lanza guy, I meant the Sandy Hook guy, right? Like you could really tell that he was really struggling with some deep issues, and like we should have been talking about him. Like it's a tragedy that someone didn't even try to reach him. Um, grant Granted, all I've read of him is that transcript, but a lot of these people just have really bad ideas, and to escalate it, if I may, and I'll give you the last word here. I believe that in order to have a healthy republic, so like this is not just about the Pavlovian bell, like whether or not people go in and like kill people en masse. I think in order for us to succeed as a nation, we have got to be prepared to wrestle with big ideas wherever they are. And when they refuse to let us access the information that we need in order to have the conversation and make conclusions, like, for example, the JFK assassination, the, the really
Yes.
they're really undermining self-government itself. And that cannot end well. And it will not end well. That's my view.
No. No. That's very helpful. I understand and agree. I obviously the debating of ideas was something that I was raised strongly with, right? That there was always, now maybe not always accounting for the what I believe is the proper view of man
Yeah.
in his fallenness and depravity, but to some degree there is a genuine sense as with us as natural and rational beings that if we give good arguments and good reasoning, that those things can have persuasion, right? That's the way I think we're made, right? We're made for that, and that's what I keep going back to with some of these manifestos you've shown us. Is it's amazing, and I'm not sure you can correct me if you have a better phrase, but like that, the cognitive dissonance
Mm.
that is kind of there with the the heart and the emotion and the conviction of these people to hold views that, in themselves and in everybody else, right? It's just
Yeah.
it
Yeah.
just doesn't compute if you hold these kind of passions and strong ideas or ideologies and such. Those things, in my opinion, point to greater purpose, right?
Right. Right.
And so, therefore, to embrace a world and a construction that you and other sentient beings better off not existing, you're really contradicting what you're doing in your head, right? You're really contradicting what you're
Yeah.
doing by writing a manifesto, right?
Right.
Like all these,
That's
in my
yeah.
opinion, that's one of the most um, helpful things that you can show people by allowing this information out, is to say these people um, did not comprehend their own emotions, their own passions, their own rationality
Hmm.
sufficiently, and embraced this culture of death, whatever we want to call it. What was it? The antinatalism and such,
Hmm. Yeah.
that contradicted their whole um, emotive force behind their existence. So, or their desire to be known and to promote what they were saying, right? Like
Right.
those kind of things just don't compute. And the the more people could see that, the better off I think society as a whole would be. Right now, it's
Right.
ultimately God's spirit that works in all things, but that is a major part of how life and how communities are redeemed and restored and built. So, you have to be able to talk through these things and teach people a better way, you might say.
Yeah. Right. Yeah. Which can't be done if we've actually suppressed their speech.
That's right.
Yeah. All right. Well, if you can just hold on while I wrap things up. I'm just gonna say goodbye to Glenn. Glenn, thanks so much for joining me tonight. It would have been a ridiculously boring episode if it was just been me going over manifestos.
I
Um,
enjoyed it, and
yeah, thanks for joining
I
me.
appreciate it.
So let me see. Let me go back to this screen right here. So yeah, we covered an awful lot of ground. None of it very thoroughly. So hopefully, no one was expecting some sort of scholarly treatment on this. That was not the by any means the goal. Um, but it should be pretty clear that I have my own viewpoints. I have my biases, as it were, but they're not necessarily ungrounded. Like there's reasons for why I continue to hold these views, and I think this podcast. One of the reasons why I have designed the podcast the way that I have is I really do believe that we need to talk about this stuff. Yeah, there's always going to be crazy psychos out there. There's never going to be utopia. We're never going to be able to get rid of all of the crazies. But a lot of these people were they they may have had viewpoints in an argument, and at best they had the echo chamber of Reddit possibly. But chances are really good that as soon as they began to express really controversial ideas, they got booted, right? And they never got to hear how their ideas were refuted. They only got to recognize that the only way they could ever make a point to society was to do something that society could not possibly ignore. And not that I think that this podcast is like designed to prevent mass shooters, but I think to promote the overall health of society, I'm glad to have that. So, like, subscribe, share. Um, I will try to get the Patreon link. It is time to do that because I am accumulating expenses. Um, as I've become aware of. Find me on social media. Like me on join the Gutenberg Press X account, that sort of thing. We are whether or not this podcast ever gets any traction, real traction, beyond my own desire to talk about deep things, really depends on you sharing it and talking about it with friends. If you've watched this far, I really appreciate it. I thank you for your time. It really means a lot to me. You could have used your time in any number of different ways. So you chose to spend it with me, and I thank you. So my name's Anthony Horvath, GutenBookPress.com, and that's it for the night. Oh my goodness. Tuesday. Tuesday, we'll have another guest. It'll be in studio, and I have a friend who's going to be entering the mission field. And if you've never had a chance to talk to or hear about it from a Christian who's contemplating such a thing, um, that will be a good opportunity to throw questions at him. I'm going to grill him. He doesn't know that I'm going to grill him. I'm going to challenge him. It's going to be fun for me. Not so much for him. So that actually will be tentatively at 1 p.m. Central Time on Tuesday. A guy entering the mission field. It's going to be fun. All right. So now we're done. Why are you still here? Get out of here. Go away. Why? Go away.